Okay, it says we're live. So for people watching the recording, hang out for a minute while we do a little housekeeping. I'm just waiting on the YouTube to come up, give me the link so I can share it on Telegram.
Excellent.
Okay, I got the link. And as always, if you guys can keep me keep an eye on those Telegram or on the YouTube chat, so we can respond to those guys. YouTube. Okay. All right. And with that, we're ready to get going. Welcome, everyone. Today is October 19th. I am Chris Troutner. I helped found the Permissionless Software Foundation. I also operate fullstack.cash, which is infrastructure as a service and custom developer services for building apps for both the eCash, Bitcoin Cash, and Avalanche blockchains. Let's go around and do a quick introduction. Aaron Sundman, why don't you start us off?
Greetings, Aaron Sundman, big fan of the permissionless software idea, as well as the Permissionless Software Foundation, and feel like it's been a big thing to see something like this happen that makes it easy to integrate with these UTXO blockchains, ones that aren't specifically EVM compliant, which most tools are being built for right now. And I'm glad to be a part of it and see how this goes.
Nice. Go ahead, Sam.
Hello, my name's Samuel, and I've been using the PSF tools for some time, and yeah, I've been working with the stuff, building little apps here and there, and learning a lot from Chris's work.
Nice. Go ahead, Stoyan.
My name is Stoyan. I helped with some of the JavaScript libraries, and recently with Aaron, we are trying to see if the Chris code is foolproof.
Yeah, I want to go over that. I didn't get a chance to really watch the Roots Up video last week that you guys did in depth. So I put that down at the roundtable discussion at the end of the agenda. Because yeah, I'd love to hear more about any stumbling blocks that you hit. Okay, well with that, I'm going to share my screen and get over to the agenda. So as always, our agendas are published on GitHub under the Permissionless Software Foundation GitHub group in a repository called TSC for Technical Steering Committee. They're filed as issues. This is the one for today, number 41. So if people are watching this recording, they can go back and see these links. So the scope of these meetings, this is the technical committee meeting, so it's the technical, and the scope of the meeting is you can follow these links. We're discussing the DEX that the PSF has been building, the cache stack, which is the architecture that everything's built on top of, the pay-to-write database, which is a censorship-resistant permissionless database in the cloud, which helps us manage data for all of our apps. And looks like I got a couple links to the DEX. And then if anybody is interested in our governance, we have psfoundation.info, which has our governance documents. Okay, so let's jump into the DEX first, because that's been the area of most of my focus. The DEX buyer wallet, I've spent the last few weeks really improving this whole user experience. So you can see that at dex.fullstack.cash, and then this will be a link. This is the Bitcoin Cash buyer only version. So you can't sell using this app, but it makes it easy to buy. And what the main improvements that I made is the icons load much faster, and when you switch between windows, they load much faster than they did. I also added fungible, or this on the fungible section. So I've got some Tether and some PSF for sale here. These now display token icons. And let me switch back. You can see how fast those icons came up. That's because now it's using caching. And the whole experience, like when you click on the buy button and it initiates, generates a counter offer, that process still takes quite a bit of time. There's not really easy ways to speed that up, but it is much more reliable, because what's happening is it's making a long series of complex network calls. And in the past, if any one of them failed, the whole thing would fail. Now each step does automatic retry. So if you have a little network hiccup, it'll automatically, just behind the scenes, try and pick up where the failure happened and try to complete the purchase. And as always, guys, jump in and ask questions and interrupt me at any time. Otherwise, I'll just keep going.
This is using the swap protocol, the DEX.
Yeah. So the core protocol hasn't changed at all. So it's still. I'm glad you asked that. So because if you go to dex.fullstack.cache, I need to bring this. Yeah, the report right here. I need to bring this into the formal DEX documentation, but there's this great infographic that I created of the signal, watch, and pay phases. And so this illustrates how, let me see if I can make a bigger image. This illustrates how, like, Alice and Bob complete a trade. So I won't go through this, but yeah, if you want to really like understand the protocol at its core, this is a great infographic for that. And yeah, it's working on Bitcoin Cash. It's working on Avalanche X Chain, and now I'm actively in the process of forking everything over to eCash. And so the DEX is just like the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole bunch of infrastructure that makes it work. So I have to fork all that infrastructure over to eCash. And that's why the original grant that eCash gave us was a year long, because I knew that there was going to be a lot of support infrastructure that needed to be built as well. Yeah, okay. And I discussed the retry queue for automatic retries. I discussed the fungible tokens that now display an icon. I've also got some code in there to reject fake USDT and fake PSF tokens. So if someone tries to make like a scam token with the same ticker, it'll just ignore it.
Oh, my plan.
Yeah.
Chris, is there a way to clean the cache? Like, what if I want to get a fresh copy of the icons? How can I do this?
Oh, just refresh the browser.
So it's kept in the browser.
Yeah. The cache is only in memory, so it's just caching it while you're switching between the different views. But when you reload the only thing that's actually like persisted is like your wallet information that's stored in the local storage of the browser. Good question. Yeah, and actually that's a good segue on these token icons. So that's basically where we're at with the DEX. I'm in full gear of trying to get it operational on the eCash chain now. And that's something, let's come back around to that, because I'm at a point where I need to create a PSF token on the eCash chain and start thinking about a bridge, and that's going to necessitate the minting council. So we'll come back around to that. But in other tech updates, the pay to write database, which is a core piece of infrastructure for us, I've created several subdomains. So this one, pwdb.fullstack.cache, is the main API. You can click on that and it'll take you to an API reference. So it's the REST API. So that's like the official, everyone can run their own instance of pay to write database, get the same API. But if you don't want to run your own stuff, and you just want to talk to a public one, this is the public one, the official public
Can I ask also something here?
Mm-hmm.
I checked your YouTube channel, but I couldn't find some nice video for installing this pay to write database. Is there something there?
That's a good question. Let's I may not have created one yet, in which case
there was even several explaining what is the idea and like a big picture, but there was, I don't think, no install video like guiding you like you have
Yeah,
for the
there's an
other
overview.
services.
Yeah, well, you know, I think the reason why I haven't created one, this is great. I'm gonna actually write that down because clearly I need to make one.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I haven't seen one, but Stoyan, I appreciate you bringing that up because that's this is a fantastic tech and it'd be nice to have more people running it.
Yeah, and this is the thing is every time I look at this README for the pay to write database, I'm like, I cringe because this graphic up here is like one database to rule all the chains. And it was like a very like over the top, like, and then I actually started building it and I'm like, oh yeah, this is actually pretty difficult to build. And so I need to like completely redo this README because it's still possible to do all these things, but I mean, it's a big project. Like we've got to take little bites off of it first. And we're only a couple steps down this roadmap. So yeah, thank you. I wrote that down. That I do need to make one of those videos. I also need to make a video on how to create tokens with the command line wallet. I've been doing that and I realized like it's a multi-step process. You can do everything in the command line wallet, which is a big step up from having to write your own code, but it's a multi-step process.
Right. I think you only need the consumer, right? The IPFS consumer, and then you can just run the pay to write database right on top of that, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, you don't even need to run the consumer. The pay to write database. Yeah, so what it does is the pay to write database. You do need an IPFS node for it to connect to, and it'll connect directly to that, and then it needs to talk to the Bitcoin Cash blockchain to verify the entries in the database. And so it'll reach out to free bch.fullstack.cash. But yeah, you can provide it with your own BCH consumer. So either way, you can do it either way. But out of the box, it'll just call free bch.fullstack.cash.
I also noticed you did you converted the pay to write database to modules, right? ESM modules.
No, not yet. I was trying to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Sam.
Or was
go ahead.
Was that the package for using the pay to write database?
Yeah, so what I did, or what happened, and we discussed this a couple meetings ago, IPFS did one of their, or JS IPFS, I should say, it's not really a reflection of the larger organization, but the guy who maintains JS IPFS, he did one of the things that he does, unfortunately, fairly frequently, is he's like, surprise, I made this breaking change and didn't tell anybody. And so he, it switched over to ESM and no longer supports common JS. So I was like, okay, like I guess we're switching everything over to ESM. So I started that process and I quickly realized that OrbitDB, which is like at the core of the pay to write database, it's what makes it a database, is not ready to support that version of JS IPFS. And so I can't upgrade the pay to write database to ESM. So it's essentially frozen right now, which is a little sketchy, but I mean, every OrbitDB instance on the planet is in the same situation. So, and it's not like it like could affect us, but it's not really negatively impacting us at this point. But a lot of the other software that it's built on top of, like the circuit relay, the IPFS service provider, I did upgrade that to ESM. And so I do have a few, and what I'm starting to do now is if I get stuck in this situation where I have to use ESM, then I'm starting to create my libraries. I'm just forking a lot. Like I'll have all my libraries are common JS right now. And so if I have to use ESM, I'll fork it and create a brand new library and just convert that to ESM. And so I'm going to do this sort of dual format for a while.
I've seen some libraries, they have like the main for the common JS modules, and then they have a module version, like so you can import, you can use both basically.
Yeah, so I know. So this switch to common JS hasn't actually solved any problems, because even if you write a node program in CommonJS or in ESM, and then you try and import that into a web browsers still don't support buffers, which most crypto libraries use excessively. And so you still have to browserify it from ESM to ESM just to prepare it to work in a browser environment. So it's all pretty common. This is like a gauntlet I've been navigating for the last few weeks of like, how do you take an NPM library, make it work with both ESM and CommonJS and Node.js, then browserify it and minify it so that it can work in a browser environment, and then have one package.json file that works for all three environments. And it's been very confusing. I think I got it figured out. It's still clunky as hell, but I think I'm doing it right. But I think the right way to do it is still just clunky as hell. So
I was playing with the I think it was the cache script. I've actually made a fork that's compatible with the with eCache, so I can share that later.
cool.
And I've seen there's ways where I had a file where I could use both the import syntax and the require syntax. So that this was kind of, it blew my mind. I was like, I think it has to do with, I don't know if it's TypeScript, but you know, it just seems like a lot of, you need to do a lot of work to configure it to work.
Yeah. Like my personal stance is I try to use as few tools as possible. So I never touch Babel, and I try to never touch Webpack, but it's pretty hard not to touch it when you do anything with React. And like I begrudgingly use Browserify because it's the only thing. Like Webpack will not deal with this buffer issue properly. Browserify is the only way to do that. And you know, so yeah, it's so convoluted. You know, the thing that really gets me is when there's an error, I want a line number so I can go to that line and fix the error. And when you introduce tools, that's what you lose. You know, and then there's other tools to solve those problems. You know, it's just like I want as few tools as possible.
Right.
Okay, well, so getting back to the pay to write database, we've got the REST API. This is for browser-based IPFS nodes. They need to connect over a secure WebSocket connection so they can connect that way. This is the REST API for the pinning cluster. That's like a separate service that runs on top. It's like a plugin. So you know you can run pay to write database without the pinning service, or you can. It's a plugin for that. So it has a separate REST API. So this is how our sort of pinning cluster works. And then it also, if you run the pinning cluster Docker containers, it sets up its own V1 circuit relay. So there's a V1 and a V2. V1, they both let you punch through firewalls to let IPFS nodes talk to one another, otherwise couldn't talk to one another. But V1 lets you pass like raw files, which is what we need for our pinning cluster. So that runs separately. And so if you have like an IPFS node and you need to pass files between it and our pinning cluster, you'll want to have it connect to this node. And then there's a WebSocket version of that as well for browser based. And then we also have a gateway, and this was actually a little tricky. The first time I set up, so this is a gateway. So when the token icons load in the DEX, whatever that token icon URL is, it analyzes it and looks for a CID, an IPFS CID, and extracts it and recreates the URL to use this gateway. And so all those icons are coming from the same gateway so that we can leverage this local caching, and the app's not dependent on some third party like web3.storage, which goes up and down all the time. Its performance is like, sometimes it's good and sometimes it sucks. So I just wanted to kind of get away from all that and set up our own gateway. But this actually got spam attacked like right out of the gate. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it was like, it took me a while to figure out that was the thing that was happening, is that like there must be bots that look for IPFS gateways and then just slam them trying to like get, I don't know what the content is or why I don't know anything about it. I just know it creates this huge spike in bandwidth. And because the IPFS node tries to cache this data, it was growing at like 1 gigabyte an hour. And I reported this on the IPFS Discord discuss forum, and nobody was able to help me. I eventually just figured it out. So that's why it's got this weird subdomain, because as far as I have a rate limiter, but that's like a limited amount of protection. And so if the bots start attacking this gateway, the only thing I really know to protect against it is to switch the subdomain. And so I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be I'm sure this is going to be something that comes back to haunt me, but we'll find out. I still don't know of any effective way to combat this, other than moving our IPFS stuff over to a private network. This is one of the reasons why we did that for a while.
Right. Yeah, I remember that was the discussion. And it feels like this is probably one of the reasons why there are a lot of reasons to move to what you did. So, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's a big trade-off. Switching to a private network solves a lot of these problems, but it means that you're isolated and you can't leverage, a lot of things. And so, I don't know what the solution is there. We're just going to keep flip-flopping back and forth until, when the pain gets too great on one side or the other. Yeah, another update to the PagerDuty database is it can be configured for Web 2 or Web 3. So like Sam, I know you run your own cache stack. Most of you guys run your own cache stack. So in that case, you'd want to configure it to use the Web 2 infrastructure. And I need to write documentation on how to do these config settings. But by default, it uses the Web 3. It reaches out to freebch.fullstack.cache. But it's much faster if you're already running your own. Even if you're running your own cache stack and you use the Web 3, it's going to go out to a public circuit relay and then come back to your cache stack. And so if you're running your own cache stack locally, Web 2 is the way to go. But if you are not running everything locally, then Web 3 is probably the way to go, because it just makes the networking like way easier. In fact, it makes it super easy because you don't have to think about it at all. As long as you have the software running correctly, it'll figure out the networking. Okay, NFT creator. So just because Sam, you're on here, and I don't think you've seen this, I created a portfolio page. I have fat finger in this whole thing. So this is a easy link list. If anybody wants to play with some of these PSF projects, there's wallet.fullstack.cache, this NFT creator, which lets you create NFTs, NFT collector, which lets you collect and display NFTs. And then there's the DEX, which lets you buy and sell NFTs and fungible tokens. So the NFT creator, in our last meeting, we reviewed this PSL 07 specification, which is right here. And so this governs token data. It's a token data schema. So we realized, like, okay, Aaron's doing something with NFTs. The other Aaron's doing something with NFTs. Stoyan's playing with NFTs. I'm building NFT tools. Like we need to all agree on a schema so that the NFTs we create are all compatible with one another's software. So that's what this is. It's gotten some upgrades. I think I incorporated all the feedback that I got from you guys. Even the stuff I was kind of like, but then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, these guys are all, they're all correct. So the NFT creator now complies with this schema. So if you go to NFT creator, do I even have it up here? But anyways.
Yeah, I like the fact that you put that portfolio thing there, because it makes it easy to find. Plus it showcases what you've done. Otherwise, thanks, people have to search for it or watch our videos and guess. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah. So it's a very simple form. These are the only two required fields. And then if you got a token icon, you can drop it in there. And then you can get a little crazy with all the options. And there's these little helper things here. So far the feedback's been pretty good. I definitely want to see more people using it.
Does one question I had is the full-sized image, does it want to pin that as well? Because I know it wants to pin, the pay to pin the icon, does it
Yeah.
also for that.
See, this is why I need to make a video on how to create, because this app doesn't, there's no like actual file upload. It relies on you to pin
Right.
the file and
Right.
provide a URL. So yes, you should pin, if they're the same, then you just pin it once. If they're different, then you pin both of them. They should definitely be pinned. But the full size image, I should actually rename this because I named that before we came up with this
Right,
media
right.
type thing. So it's like, if it's a
Full-size
3D
media.
object or if it's a text file, then it's, this is where it goes, but it's obviously not an image. But it's basically what happens is this field is the icon that people see. And then when they click on the icon, this is the URL that it opens. So if it's a PDF, you can have an icon that you click and then it opens the PDF, or it's a video, you click on the icon and it opens a video.
The reason I'm asking too is because I tried to, I have both of these out on Web3, then I was having, put them out here, but the full-size image was 5 meg. And so because it has a meg limit on what we can pin currently, a 1 meg limit, I think it failed because of that. So I just didn't put the full size in there. So that was why I was asking to see if we're trying to pin it with PayWrite database. Anyway.
Yeah. So anyways, there's that spec. If people want to suggest things, like please submit pull requests. All these specifications are ongoing conversations. That's why they have versions. And the schema is actually really cool because we can upgrade the schema, and that makes it really like explicit which version of the docket that any given icon is following. Okay, yeah, and I actually just showed you guys the portfolio page. And Minimal SLP Wallet has a new optimize function, and this has been a long time in coming. And I'll just anticipate your question there, Aaron. The PSF BCH command line wallet will get a command for this. Right now, if you go, let's see, do I have my wallet open? No, that's not it. Here we go. If you go to, so this is wallet.fullstack.cache. If you go to the wallet view and scroll to the bottom, it's just a button. You just click a button. What it does is it reduces the number of UTXOs in your wallet. So if you have more than one BCH UTXO, it'll spend all of them to create one single UTXO. If you have like a fungible token, like the PSF token, and maybe you have like 5 different UTXOs of the same token in your wallet, it'll spend those and combine it so you have just one UTXO for all of that specific token in your wallet. And by reducing the number of UTXOs, it speeds everything up because every UTXO is a network call. So you're reducing the number of network calls. So everything about the experience of this wallet improves by reducing UTXOs. Now there is a privacy impact to this, but this wallet is a single address wallet, so it reuses a single address. So it's already violating like every privacy principle. So that this wallet does not attempt to be private in any way. This is why I encourage people to use Cache Fusion and to like, anytime you're done with it, like use these as like disposable wallets. And when you're done, send your funds to Cache Fusion, shuffle it. And then when you need to do something new, extract funds from Cache Fusion, use this wallet to interact and do whatever you want. And then when you're done, send the funds back to Cache Fusion. You should always start and end at Cache Fusion to re-anonymize your Bitcoin.
The reason I was asking about the BCH, PSF BCH wallet is I think with working on the OwnRare stuff, I find that there's going to be lots and lots of individual small UTXOs. And at some point, I'm going to want to automate the optimization of it because they're not going to know the individuals, but it's, for my own back end, I would love to make it so it simplifies those things, especially when someone does 50 transactions, they've got all these little tiny things. So yeah. I'll just have to run it in the background.
Yeah. So what I do, I just actually upgraded the token liquidity app because it was running into this issue where, I'm trying to eat my own dog food with some of these apps. And so that token liquidity app uses the 100 requests per minute tier of fullstack.cache. And so when it gets more than like just a few UTXOs, it hits rate limits. So I programmed it. It's like if it has more than 6 UTXOs because it really should only have two. It should have Bitcoin Cash and PSF tokens. If it gets more than 6 UTXOs, it executes this optimize function.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So anyways, that optimize function's like, if you can get over the mental hump that this is bad for privacy, I think a lot of people are going to get hung up on that. It's really awesome. I mean, it really does just make everything easier. The fact that you can just make one call and like everything just runs better now.
But if they can run a single address wallet and not be concerned about privacy, but then get concerned about this privacy, I think that there's an issue. I mean, we know that this is an issue if you're not using HD wallet. Yeah,
it's mostly just an education thing. The token sweep feature. So in the wallet.fullstack.cache, you can go to the sweep view and sweep tokens from a paper wallet. And then I've got a link here to the paper wallet generator. So every time, so let's see, this ends in M0S. Anytime you reload this page, it's gonna generate a brand new wallet for you. And then there's source code. If anybody links down here, if anybody wants to run the source or check the source, because it is sketchy to generate a paper wallet from a web app. But basically you can store your tokens and your Bitcoin Cash and then sweep them off of it with this. And this is another great way to reduce the number of UTXOs in your web wallet. Especially if you start collecting NFTs. After about 10, you're going to start to notice a little bit of a slowdown. And so you can now, before you couldn't store NFTs, you could store fungible tokens, but not NFTs. Now you can store NFTs on a paper wallet and sweep them off with this tool.
Does that one support type 65 as well as type 1?
Yeah, that's what it does now. Is type. What it doesn't yet do is group tokens. You should pretty much be generating those on the fly and then consuming them right away. I just didn't really think that was a strong use case to support group tokens. I can in the future if there's like a desire for it, but it's, I just didn't think it was worth the effort.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think that you just generate them on the fly. I mean,
yeah, but yeah, type 65, the NFT, that's the change that was made. And then this is a library. So for instance, the BCH Dex library, if you're a seller, when you need to get any of the tokens that reclaim the tokens that haven't sold, I had 2 separate scripts in there. I had one that would use this library to sweep the fungible tokens, and then you had to run a separate script just for the NFTs. Now you can just run the one script, and it'll any fungible or NFT tokens that you have for sale in the DEX that you want to pull off the DEX, it's just nice. So it's a library. You can throw it in anytime you need to sweep a private key.
That's great.
Yeah, paper wallet. I think we're getting close to the end here. PSF, BCH wallet, command line wallet. Okay, so yeah, these so the PSF BCH wallet is our command line wallet. That's our reference wallet. So just for anybody who's not aware, I know you guys are aware, but this command line wallet is where we should all be experimenting and hacking, and that's where new features should come out first. And then the web wallet is not our primary wallet. It's a secondary wallet. And so new features go into the command line wallet first. And then if we like them and we decide that this is the way it should be done, then we can make the effort to port it over to the web wallet because it's extra work. And so the command line wallet has 2 new commands. It's got this pay to write database JSON command. And this lets you, both of these have to do with creating tokens and data for tokens. So this lets you pin a raw JSON object to IPFS, and it gives you back a CID. So it's a 2-step process where it takes your JSON data, it uploads it to the pay to write database, and then it gives you back a CID for the pay to write database, which starts with the letter Z, but that's not accessible from the wider IPFS network. And then it issues a second command that extracts that JSON data from the pay to write database and pins it across our pinning cluster. And then that returns you a normal CID that you can then use for mutable or immutable data when creating a token. So this is the reason why the command exists. Is you need to get a CID in order to specify your mutable and immutable data. And then this is sort of related. The token update command is used to update the mutable data of a token. So you would use this if say you had a token like an NFT or a fungible token and you wanted to update, say, the token icon, you would upload your data using this pay to write database JSON command. That would give you the CID, and then you would give the CID to this token update command, and it would replace the CID for the current mutable data with the new CID for the new mutable data.
Gotcha.
So you can now manage tokens, the mutable and immutable data of tokens, create them, mint them. You can do everything within the command line wallet. There isn't anything that you should need to do that's not in the command line wallet at this point.
Awesome.
You made it so that you can spend pay with BCH, right, and PSF.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, all of this, like you no longer need PSF tokens to interact with the pay to write database, at least the official one. Like out of the box, if you have your own, it will come out of the box, because ultimately that is how stuff gets into the database, is by burning PSF tokens. But yeah, it has a new feature where you can just pay, and I think it charges an extra 10% in BCH if it's like a fee, because I want to encourage people to like undercut me, spin up their own nodes and only charge 5%. Yeah, and then one final technical update, the PS002 specification, which is what specifies the mutable data for tokens. Daniel pointed, because we've been using this heavily for launchpadip.com. They've been funding the development of the mutable data stuff, and we've been using it in their product quite heavily. And Daniel's been doing most of that work. And he pointed out to me that if you do 2 updates to the mutable data that goes into the same block, it's sort of a roll in the dice as to which one the software is going to pick up. It is going to like determine, because it uses the block height to determine like what the most recent entry is. And so if there's 2 entries in the same block, it can't really figure out like which is the right one to use. It just goes with the first one it sees. And so this has been updated to add a timestamp. In fact, let me just get to the specs so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's PSF02. And so when you update the mutable data, what you're actually doing is you're broadcasting a transaction to the blockchain and you're writing some data in an operatorn. And that's the thing that tells the software like, hey, replace that old data with this new data. And before it was just one entry. It just looked like this key value, with the key being CID and then the value being an IPFS CID. Now there's a second entry for timestamp. And so this is a JavaScript. It's a number of milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. So you can, there's a link here on the date if you want to dig into how that, but it's generated pretty easily in JavaScript. And so that's just so that when the software finds 2 entries in the same block, it can sort them by the timestamp and then choose the most recent one. So technically kind of convoluted, but the concept's pretty simple. It's just if you get multiple entries in the block, pick the most recent one. And that's all the tech updates. So there's a couple things I'd like to talk about in the roundtable today with you guys. One is, Stoyan, I'd like you to give us just a summary of what you and Aaron covered in your last Roots Up video, and let's discuss any stumbling blocks you had. And then after that, let's talk about the new Telegram bot. I got a lot of positive feedback, and now I just recently got some negative feedback, and so I'd just like to hash it all out.
Okay, so can I share the screen?
Yeah, let me turn that on. Okay, you should be good to go.
Okay, Can you see this beautiful empty black space in the middle?
I got it.
Okay. So the first a little what happens, Aaron give me access to a machine with a pretty big disk and allow me to do what I want there. So it was pretty nice because I never have so big disk and I never installed like full nodes. So it was pretty interesting experiment. So I tried to install the whole cache stack there, and it's not exactly problems, but maybe like it depends of your use case. Like if you decide to scale horizontally, like adding a lot of cheap machines, the current like division on how to see Dockers, everything, it's great. But if you try to make all of this on one machine, so like me, I just get one machine, I want to make the everything, it start to, how to see, some points, there's like some problems a little. So first, so to make it interesting, here is a small gem guy, this bind fs. Do you know about it?
No, I'm not very familiar with that command.
It's a little, like I mentioned, gem, like when you mount the system, the file system, like this X4, you cannot mount it with user ID. It's always need to be mounted like a root, right?
Right.
So if I try, for example, to create something.
Oh, so he didn't give you sudo access. You're operating as a user at all times.
Yeah. So
user.
if I try normally to create directory there,
okay.
Permission denied, right? But when you install this guy, and if you like issue this command, like sudo bind, it's creating like a special secret gateway for you. So if you ever use this fuse in the past, do you ever use it?
No.
It was a big thing where there was a boom with the live CDs. It's a user level file system wrapper, so you can make some interesting stuff. Like if you access var lib, for example, a var log, it will write the log in the memory, not on the CD, because it's impossible.
Right.
So it can do this kind of interesting stuff. So when you issue this this special command, it's creating this very, very special gateway in my home directory. So when I write through this thing, it's somehow how to see, making like invisible sudo, maybe. Like if I try the same command, like this make directory through this gateway, ttt, see, there's no problems.
Nice.
So me.
This is cool. I've never. This is like Linux black magic.
Yeah. See, I just created a directory with Stoyan permissions, but in the root directory, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty convenient, I think. For you can do some magic there. So
yeah.
This was not part of my research. It was just like a little interesting stuff.
Yeah. I need to look into these commands. I mean, normally I have root access, so this is why I've never had to look into this.
Yeah, some of the problems happens because you and Aaron, you never use a multi-user machine. You're always the only user on the machine.
Yeah.
So like the problem that I discovered, it just happens because I was not the first user created in the the password directory.
Yeah, I didn't fully understand, but you were saying in the video something about like you're not user 1000 or something, or what did, was it
Yeah.
just was it a root normal user type issue, or was it just that your user ID wasn't 1000?
Yes, just so let's me. So I tried to install the whole stack. So I started first from this BCH wallet, and there's no problems here. It's pretty straightforward. It's just starting one daemon.
Mhm.
And yeah, I found, however, interesting this mainnet.cache guys, since they have like native Ubuntu packages.
Oh,
So finally, I started with the Dockers because it's nice. But after this, I realized I will never touch these guys like Fulcrum and the other daemon. They just need to be there. So
right.
I didn't need the Docker themselves. So finally, I installed like a native packages, both of these. So I now in my system. Oops, what is system? System. This thing. I just have two scripts to start these guys.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's
So you're not using the Docker container, you're just running.
yeah, it's already like native
Yeah,
Ubuntu package, which was convenient.
nice.
So the problem that I found, okay, I just start talking about something else. Sorry. Stack. This Fulcrum guy. So, it's this command.
Oh, the safe user.
I'm not sure why you need, in fact, to switch to some user in the Docker.
Yeah, this is something I've gotten criticism from before, and it's more of a hack than any sort of principled decision. Is that and part of this is because I use the same process to build a Docker container, regardless of what type of software I'm actually trying to work with. And blockchain software is pretty screwy. Like you never know what you're going to get if you like switching between a full node or, and you know, I've run full nodes for different blockchains. And so those get pretty friggin' ridiculous compared to one another. And then Fulcrum's kind of ridiculous. It's got this whole SSL cert requirement thing. And there's so much screwy software out there. And so sometimes they're really sensitive to whether you run them in a root context or a user context. And so this is a little hack that I found where I've always been told that you just should not run things as root in general, unless there's a really good reason. That doesn't necessarily apply to Docker containers. You can definitely run a Docker container as root. That's probably the easier, more normal way to do it. Of course, when I started doing this, I didn't know that. So I was doing the basic Linux principle of never be root unless you have a specific reason for it. And so that's what you're seeing there. That's an artifact of that. And so a lot of these things do not need to be run in a user context in the Docker container. But if it doesn't break anything, I typically just do it that way.
Yeah. Okay. So I understand. For me, how to see solve this problem just running it like a native package.
Yeah.
So, but for the Docker's philosophy from the beginning, it's not like a real virtual machine. It's just like a container around one process.
Right.
Like, for example, it will be MySQL and all the libraries. So there's nothing, how to see. It does not have really idea about the users. So this command, it will just tell him, okay, you do not operate like a user root, but operate like this user. So when you create the Docker container, you will create it, and during this time, this safe user, like a first user, will be with ID 1000.
Oh, okay.
It's like default UID when you create with user ID.
Okay.
So, but when I do this, when I run the container, it will start with this user 100, but my user is 101.
Okay.
So when it's trying to read to the directory, it need to be with ID 100, not my ID.
Oh, and this is because most of the containers, yeah, this is all a problem because I haven't made any effort to refine these containers. Like, they started out as a hack and then they worked and then I stopped. I didn't like go back to like try and think about these things. Is it, I mean, Docker runs with root access. So if you ask it to like mount a folder that doesn't exist, it will create the folder as root. And so are you trying to interact with the directory outside of the Docker container, or are you like entering the Docker container and then accessing it?
Let me show you, because but I already changed it because it was not. So with the command that sorry. So when I first start the container, I was following your manual. So I built the container. I started like usually with Docker compose up. And I created, before starting it, I created these directories like blockchain data and Fulcrum data. I think you just have it with, but they was both with my ID.
Okay.
But when you start the container, it was complaining that permission denied for this directory.
Okay.
So I needed to create the directory with Aaron's ID, 1000, 5000.
Okay.
And then I can usually start the Docker with my ID, Docker compose up, but it will write here like Aaron, because
that's interesting.
Because if you see the etc. password, if you see here the user with this ID is Aaron. The data directory that you are creating need to be with the same ID, not same username, like the container one.
Aaron's should get the preferred. I think Aaron's generally should get that.
So, I've never run into this issue because I'm always the only user.
You are always 1000. So same happens also with MongoDB container. It's also the directory need to be with the same ID like in the Docker, but it somehow managed to create it when you mentioned when you started, when it's not directory there.
If the directory doesn't exist, Docker will create it and it'll create it with a root permission and everything will be fine. But some of these containers, you have to create a directory ahead of time and put data in there. And then you have to do that as your user. And that's where the issue lies.
For Fulcrum, I got the data from this synced stuff that you are posting there with IPFS. That's why I created directory by myself, and that's why I found this strange problem.
This is really interesting.
So this was first like interesting stuff that happens. Other one was that there is the duplication between the Dockers. Like in the moment, I think the BCH API one, I already removed it. So I think the BCH API one includes a Mongo like Docker image, but also the IPFS service provider also creating this one.
A Mongo, it has its own Mongo container. Yeah, so the trick there, and again, this is not well documented, is you've got that startup script. You can change the ports in that script and then change the ports in the Docker Compose file so that the second Mongo container will run on different ports than the default. Because that's what happens is there's a collision. They're both trying to use the same port.
But
That's one solution, or you can just comment out the Mongo in the Docker Compose and then tell it to use the already existing Mongo.
yeah, I've done
container.
this because I decided how to see for this kind of all-in-one installation.
Mhm.
It's better to keep non-PCF software, PSF software, separately from our software because I don't need to maintain it. So I installed like I mentioned Fulcrum and the Bitcoin D, also MongoDB and also Redis.
Okay.
I installed them just like unusual packages. So
Yeah.
the operational system will keep versions updated.
Mhm.
And I just left in the Docker containers our experimental stuff here, like SOP indexer, the IPFS services, and yeah,
Yeah.
some other
See,
stuff.
So there's because I've watched so many developers, including myself, go through this process of learning how to operate the software. So it's like before there were no Docker containers, you just had to go read the installation instructions if they existed, and just fiddle with it just like this to create like a custom, like you had to do whatever you had to do to make it work on your box, which is not necessarily the same thing as something would happen on another box. And so the Docker containers are nice because if you have just a desktop with Ubuntu, you put them in and they work. And then if that's not good enough for you, then you can start to like look inside the Docker file and figure out how the thing's built in order to run it just like you did to run it sort of more natively on your own setup. And so I'm actually really happy with the process you went through. I think one of the things that is overdue for the PSF side of things is that these Docker containers are pretty bloated. I think every single one of them is over a gig. So even if I push a nice image up the Docker Hub and you pull it down, it's like a gig, and most of them don't need to be that big. And so I need to be better about packaging the Docker containers. I need to be better about the file permissions that you pointed out. Now that our software is sort of mature, like you couldn't say that before, but a lot of this stuff hasn't changed in over a year. So yeah, it's time to start sort of optimizing the Docker containers for these types of scenarios you're pointing out.
So now like the final was I have pretty much everything running on the Web 2 stack. So BCH, GS, all of the tests are passing. So I'm pretty happy with this. Nice. I have BCH and Electrum and the indexer, everything working. Nice. One maybe interesting discussion can be about this piece of software in the Fulcrum directory, in the Fulcrum, like these Dockers, there's this REST API, which is like doing a little conversion between this strange Fulcrum one and some more like a human friendly API. I think you created this. It's this thing.
Oh, the Fulcrum
API.
Yeah, the API.
Yeah.
So this is just to get around some of the, like I was saying, like some of this software is so weird. The developers make these opinionated decisions, and it's like everybody has to sub. So Fulcrum requires SSL in order to talk to it. Like you can't talk to it over normal HTTP. Won't allow it. It will allow self-signed certificates, but that doesn't work if you're actually, networking outside of one computer. And trying to get a Let's Encrypt SSL cert is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And so what I did is I hacked it. So I have this Fulcrum API container on top of the original Fulcrum container. And so it tricks between those two containers, there's a self-signed SSL cert. And so Fulcrum's happy. It thinks it's talking encrypted to its thing.
Yeah.
And then the Fulcrum API prevents like just a normal boilerplate REST API that everybody is used to talking to and can work over HTTP and HTTPS. So that's why it exists. It's just to sort of decouple this opinionated decision that Kalen made when he created Fulcrum.
No, it's great. My point was like it's now in JavaScript. So because of this, it's need this container because it will be pretty, difficult to install this on your machine. Like you need to install Node and everything. So doing it is in container is great. But I was interested from this guy, what they've done. They pretty much created one open API file, this main Net.js guys. And from this, it's just YAML file, so text file in open API format. So from this thing, they're generating clients in different languages, which cool. I think is great. So if you make this kind of YAML file and we generate, for example, Go client, we can make this whole container just a static binary, and it will be very convenient to install it. I'm not sure if it like this. See, they generated for themselves Go stuff.
Yeah, I hadn't realized. I remember when Mainnet was talking about doing this, but I hadn't realized they'd actually gotten this far. So this is a great template for us to study.
Yeah, so
because you're right. This is like what Gabriel originally wanted to do. Who created the BCH.js code that I forked from.
Because for other projects, it's some kind of interaction with the BCH, so it's a little difficult. But this one is just like two REST interfaces. You're just like bridging them. So it's maybe a small, great project for this kind of static binary.
Yeah. And
then we can reduce a little the threshold with these Dockers.
And that's for the API. That's for essentially creating effectively BCH.js. That's what they're doing is they're taking that open. They have their REST API defined as a Swagger document or open API, I think is what they're calling it now. And then they're taking that YAML file and using it to generate like a JavaScript library or a Go library or a Python library, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was interesting. So see, inside their JavaScript directory, they have their JavaScript stuff, but they also have this Swagger directory. And yeah, there's something to generate this, getting the YAML file and generating. I think I have it on my Mac, this command. What was, I forgot the name, but yeah, it's pretty easy to use. So we just need this description, like high level description of this API conversion. Like if you put this call, it will translate to this call, something like this one.
Yeah. This would be a really good thing for us to do. I mean, it's a tool, right? So you need to have some person who understands this tool and is willing to maintain this tool over time. That's what it takes.
Yeah, this is a little tricky, but
and it changes. That's the thing is like before it was OpenAI, it was Swagger, and there was a version 0, and then there's a version 1. I think OpenAPI is version 2. And so every time these things change, all your shit breaks, and you got to go back and I hate wrestling with tools. Yeah. And like if we were in a corporate environment, this would be a no-brainer because Steve will be the developer that we're already paying that we're going to designate. Like he's in charge of maintaining this.
Just assign him and
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so my how to see, I'm pretty happy now with my Web2 environment. Everything is working, test
Nice.
passing. So happy Stoyan. But I have some problems with this Web3.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you brought that up because it sounded like you were trying to run the circuit relay on this container, and that's
yeah,
or
I
on
tried
this computer.
to run both provider like a circuit relay and also to have a consumer here, so I can use my PSF command line wallet through this consumer.
Yeah,
But-
so you're actually, if you let me share my screen,
Yeah.
I can give you a visual. I think there's
Yeah,
a little
just-
confusion on how to
Okay,
interface this.
just to show you the errors that I'm getting, and I will pass then the screen to you. So I'm getting something like this kind of errors, and I'm not sure, is it normal? Is there some of the relays is bad, or
Well,
because
let me
sometimes
show you.
see,
show you my
sometimes
screen
it's
and then-
normal. It's green, everything is
Right.
connected, and
Oh, well,
then it
Yeah, you actually shouldn't be running this software on this computer. I mean,
Okay,
it's not
okay.
bad or anything, but it's just not going to do anything useful.
okay.
Yeah, let me show you the stack and how I think this machine should be configured.
Okay, so here is the screen.
Okay, going to share my screen. Okay, so this is cachestack.info. You're running the full node, the indexer, the REST API, that's BCH API.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you want to run IPFS service provider.
Yes.
And then that service provider, so there's service, what is it? There's IPFS BCH wallet service and there's IPFS BCH wallet consumer. And
Yes.
so you want to run the service, which is going to talk directly to the REST API.
Yes.
And then it's going to go out and talk to a circuit relay. So you don't want to run a circuit relay because your machine's behind the firewall, and the circuit relay is to help people cross firewalls. So what's going to happen is your computer's going to, the service provider is going to go and connect to all the circuit relays that it can find, and then other people will run the consumer software in order to talk to your service through a circuit relay. Let me show a different picture.
What if I want to run also the circuit relay? So we will have one more.
Yeah, so the circuit relay shouldn't be run on that computer. It should be run on like a cloud VPS that has no firewall, because the whole purpose of a circuit relay is to basically punch through firewalls, because it's like you're like, say I wanted to talk to that machine. I can't connect to it directly because there's firewalls in the way, but your machine can talk to a circuit relay on the internet, and my machine can talk to that machine too. And so that's the whole point of a circuit relay, is it's relaying, because we can both talk to this third party. It can relay messages on our behalf.
So it should be outside of my firewall, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So this IPFS network block, this is actually the circuit relay. So someone running, say, wallet.fullstack.cache would talk to a consumer that they could run locally. It could be on or whatever, but that consumer is going to talk to your machine, the service, through the IPFS network through a circuit relay. So this block that says IPFS network is actually a circuit relay. And so, this is like the big picture of the Web3 thing, is that like someone on a home desktop computer can run this backend, and that's the expensive thing. To try and run that on a cloud, you've got to pay for cloud hard drives and all this stuff that you don't like. It's not like you need it, but it's not really doing anything for you. Instead of running like probably $75 to $150 of infrastructure, you can just run like one $5 VPS and run the circuit relay on that. And then that's all you need, is this. Now you've replaced $150 of infrastructure with $5 of infrastructure. And And so then people running the consumer can pipe through that circuit relay to reach your backend.
So if I can ask, should I just comment the part where it's just there was some like binary flag, enable circuit relay. If I just make this 0, will it be enough?
You need to comment it out because the way environment variables work, everything gets converted to a string. So a 0 becomes a string of a 0 in a string, which is true.
Okay.
So yeah, you just actually have to comment it out.
And this is the only difference between circuit relay and just usual IPFS service.
Yeah. So the circuit relay is running the IPFS chord library, and then the circuit relay has that line uncommented, telling it that it's a circuit relay.
Okay.
Chris, when it comes to the firewall, what ports are being accessed to the circuit relay? Couldn't we just open up ports on a network and allow traffic through to that specific IP and give it a static IP?
Yes, you can do that, and that's the typical Web 2 way of doing it. And but the thing is in this new paradigm, you know how to do that, but many people do not know how to open ports and set up their router to do port forwarding. And so by running that service provider, you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to think about it. And the circuit relay punches through those firewalls and it does all that networking for you.
Yeah, I see. So technically we could still make one of those servers be a circuit relay as long as we open up the ports, give it a static IP, and only point traffic coming through those ports to that IP.
Yeah, exactly. How you got your cat? I'm petting my girlfriend's dog here. So you got animals behind the scene. Well, cool, guys. I'm glad I understand that better, and I'm glad you guys understand the architecture better. Let's switch gears before we wrap up here, and just I just want to get as much feedback as I can on this new Telegram bot. So we've got a spam bot problem. We got a new person joining the channel like every 5 minutes that's not a human, and I had these bots that were doing a pretty good job, that you'd have to solve the CAPTCHA. But what I found is like those bots go down quite frequently. Then there's no notifications. And then when they do that, then these spam bots just join and can start talking, and they don't have to go, because like we're ultimately not in control of those bots. And so we've talked about doing an NFT for the VIP room. So this bot I put in our Telegram channel. So for people who don't know what I'm talking about, just yesterday, we started a new Telegram bot in our new Telegram room. And it's a 6-step process. And step 1 is open up our web wallet. And then you ask the bot you get an address, and you give that address to the bot, and it can send you a token. And then you go to another web app where you sign a message proving that you own the address that has the token. And that's the verification process. And then you can talk in the channel. What I like about this process is, it's 6 steps. So I'd love to reduce that to 3 if possible. 6 might be a little too much for some people. Of course, some people don't like that it's on Bitcoin Cash and not on their favorite blockchain. And I don't register that as a serious complaint, because we're not a blockchain. We work with blockchains. We don't work with any specific blockchain over another. What's nice about the process, there's 2 things I like about this process. One is it doesn't require any Bitcoin Cash. It's just, all you have to do is get the token and prove you have the token. It doesn't actually cost anything to do that. So that's a big advantage in my mind. And then the second one is it makes sure that everybody's familiar with our web wallet, which is like a core piece of software for this organization. I really, if you're not at least willing to try our web wallet, I don't really think you need to be in our Telegram channel. but I'm totally open to pushback on that idea. It sounds like you guys have all gone through the process, and it sounded like you had a pretty good experience. Like, what feedback do you guys have, especially negative? I really want to be open to negative feedback right now, and things I might not have considered, or it might be not considering strongly enough.
Well, one thing I'd say is I don't want to lose David, because it seems like right now, the way he talked, I don't know who all was on, but it was pretty clear he wasn't going to do this. And I think that's a pretty big loss if we lose him by not making this simpler. So figuring out how to make it simpler. One is, I mean, I could certainly help eventually with that by using OwnRare to actually generate the whole thing, send it in, and I'll just copy. All you have to do is copy and paste this in, and it will do all the work for you. All right. I mean, that's centralized, right? But in this case, I have the WIF, I have the ability to sign a thing, I have the ability to hold an NFT, stuff like that. But that's a ways off.
Maybe how to see. When I was doing this, I was thinking it will be good to have a sign page in the wallet itself. Now you was creating like a different site, but if we have a sign page in your wallet, you just go there, type verify, press a button, there's the signature, so you copy paste it. And about the first steps, it can be a mint site or airdrop. So somebody can airdrop all of the NFT tokens. You just need to give them your wallet address. Like in this case, David, what is your wallet address? This one. So you can airdrop the NFT to him. He don't need to go through the steps of requesting and generating on the fly. You can pre-generate the tokens with this address which the people give you, and just airdrop them. So they will be in the wallet already. You can do this step.
Similar idea would be you just make it one step. Have the verify Bitcoin Cash, and then because you're not actually checking. I mean, you are eventually checking that the NFT is in there, but with that step, you're just checking that they own that wallet. So do both in that one thing, right? So when they verify, put it in there, and then also verify later.
The distribution can be separated, like it can be mint site with mint button or whatever they want. But if you make this easier, just NFT will be in their wallet. If we start from there, NFT will be in their wallet. So the only missing part will be verifying. So this wallet belongs to this guy. And if we have this page in the wallet, it will be just going there, type verify button, paste the signature. It's just one step.
That's really good. We probably don't even need the feedback, or the token. We probably just need just verify a Bitcoin Cash address, and if we put the verify process in the wallet, then it's only one app to go to. I like that. That's really good feedback. And then we could send them a token after the fact, just sort of as like a souvenir or a POAP essentially.
Right, and then the idea of being able to still use that same concept for the VIP rooms, it would still work, but you would just check for the NFT for that one and not for this one.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a really good point.
I know some bots use like a DM where you could DM the bot. It's on a separate and maybe what was I gonna say? You can DM the bot and do the verification, because I noticed that when I did the /start, I was reading the instructions and then they just like disappeared. I
screenshot it, right?
That too. I mean, you can just keep asking. It's just like I want the bot to delete anything it says after, and then you got to give this threshold. Like I could just increase the amount of time before it gets deleted. But that's the thing is that whole.
A DM would probably
doing a DM with a bot is like a whole separate code path.
Okay.
I haven't created yet, and so like I can do it, but because as far as I need to look, that's a good point, and I need to look into that. But the whole like DM thing is just like an entirely separate code path.
Oh.
the way everything gets handled. So, that's good feedback, guys. That's really good feedback. I think already we've identified some ways to to reduce some of those steps. It's really valuable. All right. Well, is there any news topics or anything anybody wants to discuss before we call it a day?
A lot of great stuff. I've just read some Jake Travisky who talked about the newest regulation in the U.S. that might start to point toward DeFi. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's still happening, and I just end up reading on Twitter all of the crypto lawyers who are like saying what is the new regulation that's coming out. And I mean, if we're like, for example, if we're building NFT things, sites, eventually this is going to come under some CFTC or SEC regulation. And it's just like, you want it to be simple and easy to use, but you also don't want to have 16 lawyers just to set up a damn NFT site that costs 15, 20 cents. It just feels like this is not I don't know. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is a lot going on. That's the thing. When they talk about regulation, my sort of personal filter, and maybe I'm wrong with this, but is like what they can regulate is Coinbase and like essentially neobanks. Like that's the only thing they can they can't stop you from running software on your own computer. And that everything that we do here is about running software on your own computer. So yeah, I maybe it's wrong of me, but I tend to dismiss a lot of the news items about regulation because it's like, dude, this is why you can't regulate guns, because at the end of the day, someone can just make a gun.
Right.
Maybe it's not as good as the ones you buy, but the software doesn't have that problem. Like we can produce industrial grade software on our home computers.
You see the guy who printed a bunch of 3D printed guns and made $21,000 selling them to the gun buyback.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing that now, and I wholeheartedly applaud it. It's like, yeah, if they're going to have this farce of a gun buyback, just keep printing them out and make some money, man.
Copy. Love it.
All right, guys. Well, yeah, we're pushing an hour and a half. Probably a good time to wrap it up. I really appreciate you guys making the time. As always, we covered a lot of stuff, and I certainly feel in a better place than at the start of the meeting.
Yeah, thank you. Great feedback, everybody. I mean, this has just been a great meeting. I think I learned a lot as well. Thanks, Sam and Stoyan, for jumping in. And Aaron, I hope your meeting went well.
It went exceptionally well. Thank you.
Nice. Okay, guys. Well, I will be on Telegram, and I look forward to continuing the conversation there.